All right, welcome to Forward Future Live today, Friday, February 13th, 2026. I'm Matt Berman,
And I'm Nick Wentz.
and today we are going to chat with some amazing guests. We have Jayden Clark, aka Atlas, host of MOTS, members of the Technical Staff podcast, to tell us all about the what's going on in San Francisco. We have Lloyd, founder and CEO of Warp. We have Armor Harris, SVP and GM of Shield AI. But first, let's get into some of the news stories this week because a lot happened.
Yeah, something big happened. So our friend Matt Schumer wrote an article,
Hmm.
and I think I don't know, it caught some attention here.
Yeah. So look at that, 80 million views, and he probably would have won the $1 million had he published this just about a week ago.
Yeah,
Because X was giving away $1 million for the top article on its platform, and I don't believe the top article a week ago reached 80 million, but I could be wrong about that.
yeah. So there are things that happen in the echo chamber that is X that periodically break containment.
Yeah.
This is clearly one of them. Why do you think what about this article do you think struck a chord with people?
I think it's a mixture of a few things. Certainly, there's some hype, right? Some hype to it. There's an element of fear, an element of realism. I think
Hmm.
he spelled out a lot of what us inside of this AI bubble were feeling, but maybe couldn't communicate well enough to people outside. And this article was directly written for people who are in the inside to send to their friends, their family, their colleagues on the outside of this little bubble. And so
Yeah.
I think that mixture of factors really made it just go absolutely viral, and it's well written. So yeah,
Did
congrats to him.
did you send it to anyone? Family members, people outside the industry?
I did. I sent it to my
Yeah.
wife, and I sent it to her right before bed. And she read it and said, "Well, now I'm not going to be able to sleep." Uh,
Yeah, it will
so
have that
that,
effect.
yeah, so it really had like a deep effect on people.
It's funny. I also sent it to my wife. I sent it to a few of my friends outside of the industry. Um, it's funny that our wives will both read X articles that we send them, but they won't watch our live show or watch our YouTube videos.
I wasn't gonna say that, Nick, but I actually think Ista, my wife, is watching right now. So
Okay.
if she saw that,
She'd be
sorry,
disappointed in me. Yeah.
it was Nick.
It was Nick. It's all me. Yeah, and I think the thing for me about this article is it felt like a really good encapsulation of what has happened in the last couple of weeks. And for me personally, I mean, just looking at Opus 4.6 as an example, the things that we've been able to do with that model just weren't possible before. And so it does feel like we've reached another step change in the innovation of some of these models.
Yeah, the specifically Opus 4.6, GPT 5.3 codecs. It's like you send them off and have almost full confidence that they are going to come back and have the task completed over whatever duration of time they need to go do it. And that confidence has really unlocked a lot of potential use cases. And then at least for me, although I don't believe he mentioned this, OpenClaw has like that is the third ingredient that has just completely exploded my usage of AI. Obviously, I was already using it like crazy, but now the amount of different parts of my life, different parts of our business that have been completely unlocked to apply artificial intelligence and do so in completely novel ways has just been just surprising, shocking.
Yeah.
And so yeah, something has happened in the last few weeks. I know he talks about the last few months, but I've especially noticed it in the last few weeks. We are automating, excuse me, large parts of our business that we were doing just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we were like we were just talking about it before the show. Like
There are these experiences in the last couple of weeks that I can trace back where suddenly something is automated or we're able to do something with these models that previously we could not do. And it almost feels like all of that time that was sunk into the effort and the work of setting up these kind of brittle automations or these brittle processes, like it almost feels like wasted effort. And I say that a little facetiously because I know that I can only imagine what engineers feel like. Engineers who
Oh, Nick, you cut out there.
thought,
Nice. Nick, you there? All right. As Nick comes back, I'm going to continue that thought a little bit. So, what we also realized is even though we are automating large parts of our business, and like, we have Jonah who joined the team a handful of months ago, and a big part of what him and I were doing together was doing video research and organizing our thoughts and we together have now automated that entire thing. And that does not mean now him and I are sitting around doing less work. It's like quite the opposite. We're actually thinking about so many other things we can be doing. And I think that is an indicator for what's to come. And so if you're looking at all of this and you're fearful about being automated away, your job, your role being automated away, as long as you have the ability to continue to evolve and adaptability, you're going to be fine. There's so much to do out there, and for us, it's a data point of one that you can look at,
yeah,
but it is a strong data point.
it certainly feels that way right now. Who knows what happens in 12 months, 24 months? It's hard to predict, but right now I've never been busier. The team has never been busier. I remember we were talking to the deputy CTO from Microsoft, Sam Salache, and he was saying the same thing. He was saying, everyone's calling for this white collar bloodbath, but I've never been busier. I've never had more projects going on. My team hasn't either. So it's interesting. I wonder if that persists or if there's this milestone in the near future where some of that work is taken off our plates even more so than it already is. But right now, that's not the case.
Yeah, in fact, we're having kind of quite the opposite issue. And Jonah and we all were talking about this right before the show. We are having attention saturation. I can't,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm struggling to keep up with all the things my agents are doing for us. So that's another problem to think through. How like we are orchestrating all of these agents, but if we can't even context switch fast enough, by the time it comes like we are the limiter of our total pipeline of work. So it's just like how do you solve that then? And then maybe we need an orchestrator agent and we're just overseeing that one agent. And so there's just so many architectural decisions and thought experiments to think through.
Yeah. I do feel this sense of guilt when I'm not setting up agents to go out and research or go out and build, and there's just idle time. And I want to be conscious of that feeling because it's an interesting and unique feeling. Um, I can see how this gets out of control, where you're on your way to you know, heading into the weekend and you haven't set up your agents to go do work for you and you feel this immense amount of pressure, or you're going on vacation and you haven't set
Yeah.
up these agents to go do work for you and you can't focus on anything else because you're not being productive.
Yeah, it's
How are
that
you feeling
meme,
about that?
right? You saw that meme, Nick, where it's like, on one side, there's the woman in bed. I wonder
Okay.
what he's thinking about, and the guy's like, I don't have any agents running for me right now. And so,
It's
yeah,
real.
like
It's real.
right before the show, Nick, I'm kicking off cursor agents. I was like, okay, let me think of a big project I can give them so I know I'm churning through tokens at least through the duration of the show. So totally. And then, Cursor, speaking of, they have long running agents now where they could potentially be running for hours, which Jonah just told me about this morning. They just released it. So now I'm like, maybe I'll be able to feel good for a certain amount of hours
Yeah.
knowing they're
Yeah.
running.
It's funny. I shut down my cursor before the show. I was too worried about the bandwidth.
It it's wild. It's wild. And I th I think as you said, it's so rapidly changing, especially in the last few weeks. It just feels at times overwhelming. It really does. So again, like if you're feeling that as well, you are not alone. This is literally our full-time job and we're feeling overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
definitely not alone.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine who's the CEO at a startup in San Francisco, and he's very much at the bleeding edge of all of this stuff as well. The products that they're building, the space that they're in, and he was like, I literally haven't had a second to work on this stuff myself, hands on keyboard, trying to build this myself, and I know how to talk about it. I know what's going on, but I feel that FOMO. I feel like I'm missing out on doing it myself because I just can't make the time. So yeah, if anyone else is feeling behind, you are certainly not alone.
Yeah.
Um,
In
yeah.
fact, just to put a bow on that point, I don't think many people are kind of on the leading edge of this stuff. Even as you said, tech founders, tech
Mhm.
employees, people like, major tech companies. I really don't think they are at the cutting edge. And so people are just figuring this out and we'll all figure it out together.
That's right. So I want to talk about this article and any points that you may
Yeah,
have
that's how we
just,
started.
yeah, let's get back to the article.
It all
Anything
goes to
in,
OpenClaw, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly. All paths lead to OpenClaw. Um, Anything in that article that you found yourself disagreeing with or having a slightly different perspective on?
Yeah, so if you could scroll down to the financial part, he started like that. It's hard to make financial decisions when it's so unclear. Plus, I do not ever want to give financial advice. I think this is starting to kind of bleed into the permanent underclass line of thinking, which I
Hmm.
don't necessarily agree with. Um, Maybe do yeah, like I think he said something about selling financial. No, yeah, type sell. He said something about like selling. He basically,
Underclass.
yeah. Let's see if we can find it together.
Underclass? No.
No,
Finance.
maybe search for money. No, gosh, it's down there. Keep going. Let's see if we can find it.
You think we could do this?
I know. I guess not. All the AI in the world can't help us
Yeah.
here.
So,
But
but permanent underclass. So he is saying that there's a finite time to make value, create value in the world, and if you miss that window, you're going to be in the permanent underclass.
yeah, that's the concept of the permanent underclass. Once AGI comes, then really it's just about how much capital do you have to invest in compute to run your AI. And wherever you are, whoever has the most capital automatically wins because they can get the most work done. Now, I don't, that's not necessarily what he talked about here. He started talking about selling assets and like big financial decisions because of what's coming. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And he
Yeah,
didn't give strong recommendations. He definitely hedged it, but you can see it was a little bit panicky, and I just that rubbed me the wrong way. But that was probably the only part that I truly disagreed with.
yeah. I think that there would be economists who would disagree with like the I don't know how he put it exactly, but this time is different, right? So you have like the industrial revolution where physical labor moved to cognitive labor and AI replacing cognitive labor entirely, it like leaves this kind of a gap for where humans can't move into. Whereas in the industrial revolution there was a proliferation of new jobs that humans could suddenly move into. And if I'm understanding Matt's perspective on this correctly, he doesn't think that that's going to happen this time. That AI is going to be all encompassing and take all of the cognitive work and the labor. And I find myself disagreeing with that. I think we're already seeing signs that there are new jobs coming, and maybe not enough new jobs, but there are certainly new jobs. So no one knows how that's going to play out. But that was another point that I found myself kind of wanting to resist, at least.
So, Nick, back to the previous one. Do a word search for financial house. That's the section. And let's read what he said. There it is. Just that paragraph. So
Okay,
I
go
can read
ahead.
it. I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not trying to scare you into anything drastic. So hedging. But if you believe, even partially, that the next few years could bring real disruption to your industry, then basic financial resilience matters more than it did a year ago. Build up savings if you can. Be cautious about taking on new debt that assumes your current income is guaranteed. Think about whether your fixed expenses give you flexibility or lock you in. Give yourself options if things move faster than you expect. Now, the good thing about these suggestions is they're kind of just good suggestions, regardless of what happens. But the kind of underlying point is that there should be maybe a little bit of fear, and I don't know. I just don't like that take.
Yeah.
He's basically saying like hunker down. And I don't know. I don't necessarily think we need to hunker down. I think we need to expand and I think we need to adapt.
Yeah. Universally pretty sound advice, though.
Yeah.
Don't extend yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, the other thing that he talks about is exponentials. You know, humans have a very difficult time understanding exponentials, forecasting them. That is something that I very much agree with, right? Like we're kind of already seeing that play out where if you're someone who used like ChatGPT 3 and haven't used AI since, AI today is going to be unrecognizable to you in many, many ways.
I think to that point, his most salient suggestion is to go sign up for a paid subscription to one
Mm-hmm.
of the top models. If you're using a free subscription, you're using one of their lower end models, you're not getting all of the functionality, all of the tooling. And I know not everybody can afford $20 a month. I totally understand that. But if you can, try and go get those top models. Play around with them as much as you can within the quotas you get. And if at any point one of these frontier companies gives out free credits, go grab them as quickly as you can. Just try to get your hands on the frontier models because the frontier models are very different than the models that came out 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Very different.
And, you know, Jonah and I just experienced this. We were building internal tools, and with the latest model releases, we were able to essentially one shot those tools. Yes, there's some iteration required, but previously it would have required a lot more prompting, a lot more planning. So, yeah, the development is rapid.
Yeah.
All right, well let's move on to the next story here. Oh, so we should talk about OpenClaw a little bit more broadly here. This company did release OpenClaw for Slack, and they're reporting that within 3 hours they hit 1 million ARR. Who knows? But you know, you released a video recently on OpenClaw use cases that did
Yeah. A bunch of
fairly
videos.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, there's, I don't know, 100 businesses that have been built in the last 2 days on top of OpenClaw or OpenClaw services. I've seen hands-on setup services. There's just a million, I think OpenClaw, even though like it may not be the final form of what AI looks like, it certainly inspired an entire generation of builders to think about how AI can be applied differently. I think, by the way, this is, we talked about this in the past where it's like when a new technology comes out, what people tend to try to do first is take the thing that had already been done, the form factor, and then apply it within the lens, through the lens of the new form factor. So the example is the internet in the early days of the internet, rather than thinking there could be completely interactive, like fully functional websites. People just took newspapers and magazines and put them on the web. It wasn't until you started experimenting and figuring out what else might be possible with this new technology that it became really interesting. And I think that's what OpenClaw did. We had AI, and mostly people were using it as a Google search alternative. But now I think with OpenClaw, it opened people's eyes, even my own, to what is possible, right? Like something new, something novel that isn't just a Google search replacement. This is true, like deeply integrated personal assistance living on your machine that can accomplish virtually any task that is done in front of a screen.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the innovation here? It's the connectivity, the glue that holds all of these pieces together. Is that the breakthrough to you?
I think so. I think it's the integrations, the level of integrations as possible. Plus, they basically ripped off any semblance of restrictions or like OpenAI would have never put this out. Google would have never put this out, right? It took this guy building open source software for himself to because there's huge security risks. So put this out. It's the level of integration that's possible. I actually think a big part of it is the fact that it lives locally on your machine. I think that's really cool. And it just kind of feels more personal, gives you a level of control that's not possible if it's in the cloud. And then I think as part of the integration, it's also the fact that it shows up natively in the chat apps that you're using, WhatsApp, Telegram. And you can just tell it what to do and it doesn't just say, I can't do that. I don't have that plugin. It just figures it out for you. And I think those three factors together is what makes it special.
So this may be an obvious answer, but what is the use case or what is the signal to you that you're going to move from Telegram into Codex? Like what kind of tasks are you handling directly within Telegram? And then what kind of tasks are you like, I'm actually going to move this over. I need more of a visual of what's happening.
So I do things probably a little bit different. I actually do most of the modifications of OpenClaw within Cursor. I was fortunate enough, Cursor is giving me a lot, basically unlimited credits to use. So I'm, experimenting a
That
lot.
helps.
It does help. So I try to move basically all modification work, evolution work of OpenClaw into Cursor. I do it through Cursor. It's also, I like it because I can actually see what's happening more precisely than just a single threaded Telegram conversation. It's definitely possible to build all this stuff within Telegram. It's just easier for me, and I'm pretty technical, so I like to see the inner workings. I like to get my hands a little dirty. Um, and then everything else just happens through Telegram for me.
Well, you mentioned a couple of big companies and how they weren't necessarily going to take the jump to build something like this. Well, now we're getting wind that Peter might actually be joining a big tech company, one of the frontier labs. What do you make of this? It kind of makes me sad, to be honest.
Me too. I mean, he talked about it on Lex Friedman. I think there were rumblings that he's, talking to Zuck and Altman and yeah, I put out a post about this on X. I like if it does happen, it's a little bittersweet. I think I kind of view him as the champion of open source and champion of kind of frontier experimentation with artificial intelligence. He's kind of a unique character. We had him on the show, really fun to talk to. Um, and so on the one hand, like very happy. That's great. It's bringing his ideas and his culture into those larger companies. That's a good thing. Um, I'm sure financially it's very good for him, but at the same time, like I kind of enjoyed having him as the leader of OpenClaw and being a champion for open source and being independent. There was kind of a uh, I don't know, like a underdog mentality to it that
Yeah.
I really liked, and that goes away completely when you join a frontier company.
Yeah. Look, part of me would prefer that the project stay independent. I think it's probably better for the ecosystem as a whole. There's already so much power and so many resources consolidated at the big companies. That said, you can't blame him for wanting to join a lab just with the access to talent, the additional resources. You get your free matcha lattes. There's a lot to like. Uh,
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see which direction he takes.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. He did say that the project will stay open source, it will stay independent, which
Right.
is great, but these companies don't have a rich history of open source. Actually, that maybe let me give credit where credit's due. I think Meta actually does have a pretty rich open source history, but still, like ultimately they're beholden to shareholders. So like if something if they have to make a decision between open source and making sure that they're delivering to shareholders, they are
Yeah.
legally they're legally required to
Indeed.
work for shareholders.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to this next story. this is something that's becoming more and more common. I don't know if I've seen it at this level, public company. This might be the first, but Spotify says that its developers haven't written a single line of code since December 2025. They are apparently using a AI system, internal AI system called Honk, which is powered by Claude. Um, they've also apparently shipped 50 plus features. Um, that may have been the second half of last year. But anyway, the progress, the acceleration at which they're shipping and developing their product is increasing very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, this is like we're seeing this every day now, whether it's the Claude Code team or Boris Cherney basically saying he wrote the whole like the whole Claude co-work with Claude Code, and we're just seeing this more and more. And obviously, developers are the first to realize that they're being automated, and so they're getting more work done than ever. They're not actually writing much code anymore. They're more orchestrating things, and so it's interesting. I'll be right back. Bio break
Yeah,
and take over for me.
take a break. It's actually a story I want to cover. Let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, that is not it. Oh, here we go. All right. So June is announcing Simile, which is simulating human behavior um, in agentic form. And so this project was just funded. I think they raised $100 million. No, not a small round. But the premise behind this is basically he's saying pilots don't train with real passengers, surgeons don't practice on real people, actors don't rehearse with real audiences. Yet some of our most consequential decisions in society and government are pushed straight into production. And so this is the products that are released, the policies that are announced, and all of these things affect millions and millions of people. And so his goal at Simile is to build an AI simulation of society so we can test these ideas, these policies before they're released to humans. Matt, did you see this article?
Yeah, I did see this. I was really excited. By the way, did you already say that this is the author of that human simulacra paper out of Stanford, basically kind of one of the original multi-agent simulations? It was like 2 years ago. I made a video about it like 2 years ago. I was blown away. I read the paper multiple times. I've covered multiple of his papers. He just has such a cool research record, and I'm sad he didn't reach out to us to invest.
Yeah, it's a
Where
big
where
bummer.
where are we, June? Come on.
We'll have to have him on the show though.
Yeah,
Talk about
absolutely.
this.
No, I was super excited to see this. It's basically an extension of all the research he's been doing at Stanford over the last couple of years. A lot of simulation stuff, and um, it's very, very cool. I just remember reading that paper for the first time and being absolutely blown away by putting, I think it was 100 agents maybe in a little town. They developed their own personalities.
Oh,
They
right.
developed their
Yeah.
own dynamics with each other. They started having emergent human-like behavior on like relationship building, and it was just fascinating to watch. And it was really the first time you saw anything like that.
Right. You just jogged my memory. I do remember that video that you made now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things was that they would actually develop relationships, right? And
Yep.
those relationships worked in dynamics that are very familiar to how humans develop relationships, how those relationships go sour, how they grow. Like it was very lots of parallels in that regard, right?
Yeah, and so like one example was like a couple of the agents built a friendship with each other. One of them was having a birthday party, invited the other agent, and the agent had another friend and asked the friend, the agent who was having a birthday, "Hey, can I also invite my friend?" They both went. They became friends. Like all of this stuff is so fascinating.
Yeah. This stuff is really exciting. This is the practical use of AI in my mind. I believe they're already partnered with CVS to simulate customer purchasing decisions. And so, focus groups, market research, that's one thing. Of course, that's going to be helpful for large enterprises, large companies. But where this gets really interesting, I think, is more at the societal level where you're enacting new policy. Like being able to forecast what happens when you change a law, change some of kind of a policy and the impact on society, whereas there's no test bed for that currently. And this gives us the beginning of what could become a lot of interesting data
Yeah,
to
and in
yeah.
his original paper, he in the conclusion section, I remember you just jogged my memory. He specifically talked about that as one of the applications, and so you're totally right. It's going to be interesting to see how to scale something like that because if you're talking about policy changes on a city level, a country level, I mean, you need massive compute, a ton of different agents. That it's just, yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch how this company evolves.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Well,
Congrats to June.
yeah, June, reach out. We're here.
Please. We want to get you on the show.
All right, what do you think bringing on our first guest?
Let's do it.
All right. We have Jayden, aka Atlas. He's our first guest today, and I just want to say a couple of words about Jayden, then we're going to bring him right on. He has a personal vendetta against sleeves. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna start to understand why. He lives at the very center of the known universe, and when he's not wailing away on his beautiful saxophone, he's building his media company and rubbing shoulders with San Francisco's finest AI doomers and boomers. Jayden, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a great day in the center of the universe. I'm a little sick, so if for whatever reason I sneeze or I'm a little bit sniffly or what have you, there is my disclaimer for the day. I need to portray that my life is so hard. Joining a podcast from the comfort of my own home with a heater next to me, and so yeah, really in the trenches today. But yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so excited. I think I found you like discovered you on X originally because you make so many hilarious posts, but I think the one that really got me is I think it was Christmas dinner. You had a Christmas dinner with a bunch of your friends, and it was sponsored by a few tech companies, and you did live reads during the dinner. Maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was Thanksgiving dinner. I
Thanksgiving.
think Christmas I did one from my from a pool. I was actually I was back in Australia visiting family, and summer in Australia, of course, and so I did a what I like to call performative ad read. So the Christmas one was in the pool. The Thanksgiving one, which did the rounds, that was with everybody at the Thanksgiving table. so so I figured, you know what, this would be kind of funny. I mean, of course, you have the whole trend of like performative coding, right? Or like performative 996ing. Whether some people are 996ing performatively or not. We can sort of we can take that on a case by case basis. But I wanted to sort of make fun of, it's like, oh, okay, well, like, oh, I'm going to be grinding on Thanksgiving, right? I'm going to be working on Thanksgiving to escape the permanent underclass or something. And so I decided to do an ad read for my presenting sponsor for MOTS at the time, and I think the caption was something along the lines of, you might be coding on Thanksgiving, but are you brave enough to do a performative ad read? And of
Yeah.
course, I got all my friends in the background, and it was almost like a Thanksgiving grace. But to my presenting sponsor, I did really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, it was hilarious. You are on the frontier of media, obviously, and then but you've been unemployed for a little while. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about like seriously, what is members of the technical staff? What are you trying to do with it?
Yeah, so members of technical staff, I mean, I like to think of it as a, very San Francisco native show. I mean, I like to call it, niche San Francisco technology culture podcasting. So it needs to be this great run-on, descriptor with a bunch
Sure.
of buzzwords. But, the way I like to think about it is it is a semi-serious take on the tech culture and that goes on in San Francisco, and I like to think of it as it's neither timely nor timeless, right? So I generally release an episode every week. There's no particular time schedule, but I try and pick a topic that is relevant to the culture for that given time. Of course, every now and then I like to do like emergency podcasts, right? So the idea that something happens on the timeline or something happens in the culture, and I decide to spin up an episode. And yeah, it's meant to be poking fun at myself, poking fun at what goes on in San Francisco, because I think I think a thing that is important for us in technology now to recognize is that we have not been the underdogs for quite a while, right? So like we in technology, I think a lot of us tend to take ourselves very, very seriously, right? I mean, like technology, it's a very important part of the US economy and the world economy. And so, I mean, I like to just poke fun at it, right? Poke fun at it, poke fun of myself. And, members of technical staff tends to be a commentary on that, right? Poking fun of San Francisco culture and just documenting what happens in the center of the universe. That is San Francisco.
Beyond the humor, which of course I appreciate and think you do quite well at, you also bring some realism to the conversation in an industry, in a town that has so much hype. It's easy to get carried away from time to time. Is that a conscious decision, or is that just something you're doing naturally, bringing that realistic take?
It's a good question. I mean, I think there is a little bit of both. I mean, I think, if there's one thing that you get, that gets sort of thrust upon you when you're brought up in Australia, it's a sense of tall poppy syndrome, right? The idea that nothing is ever good enough, right? No one's ever good at anything, and anybody that rises above, you got to chop them down to size. And and I do think, I think the great thing about the US and San Francisco, Silicon Valley as a whole is that there really is none of that. But if there is anything that's sort of like always in the back of my mind, it's always to sort of question things a little more perhaps than those of us in Silicon Valley do. I tend to also just be generally, I like to think of myself as almost like anti-hype, right? It's like, okay, if something's come out, right, everybody's sort of losing their minds over this thing. I always like to think, okay, just take a step back. What is actually happening here? And so I really just try and sort of, if I'm not poking fun at some sort of hype cycle, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to just take a step back and just think, okay, is everybody just crazy posting, or is what is happening like super, super important? I think the answer almost all the time tends to be a bit of both. Right. Like there tends to be a lot of crazy posting, but as we probably all know, like what is happening now in tech is it's pretty awesome, right? And a lot of cool things are being done. So I just try and take that middle ground, right? That is a conscious decision of mine for sure.
So Jayden, we can't have you on the show without asking you to give us a state of the niche San Francisco tech culture update. So what is going on, please?
So I think generally, and it ties in well to the previous question. I do feel like there is a almost like a real sense of anxiety, actually, right? Almost kind of going back to sort of like 2023 levels of anxiety, in which you sort of had the release of ChatGPT and then subsequently GPT-4, right? And then so sort of like what kept feeling like a step change, right? One after the other. I mean, with sort of Claude Opus, right? And Claude Code towards the end of last year, that feels to me, and I think to a lot of people in the Bay Area, that feels to be another one of those step changes, right? And I think those of us that have written code, right, or those of us that are even like building apps, those sorts of things, I think we're really feeling that step change again. And so I think naturally with it comes a lot of anxiety, right? All the timelines are moved. Like, they become much more aggressive. AGI 2027 is back on the cards. It probably wasn't back on the cards in, say, maybe fall of last year. And because so many of us here in San Francisco and the Bay Area are engineers, right? We tend to index off of that. It's like, okay, cool. Well, if my workflow has changed so significantly in the last year, what does that mean for every other industry? So, the discourse around the permanent underclass is back, right? The discourse of maybe we don't need coders anymore in 1 year. All of this sort of thing is back. And of course, we kind of have all of this other stuff happening. Of course, OpenClaw, Malt book, and right, everybody getting a taste of, what does it look like to have all of these agents interacting with each other and making decisions autonomously. I would argue that that's been happening on Reddit for quite a while, but Malt book sort of put it into the fray, put it onto the timeline, and as did OpenClaw when it comes to a lot of this, sort of. It's more like personal computer use, right? Different applications as context, and of course, the project being open source. So that's sort of my round the world take, is that the anxiety is back.
Yeah, and
the job
Jayden,
anxiety.
I want to ask about that for a second. Is the anxiety that people don't feel like they can keep up? Is it's moving too quickly? Is it the uncertainty of? Is it a mixture of it? Like, what is actually? I feel it, by the way, just to be
Yes.
clear. And for me, it's a mixture of all of them. But what are you hearing? What are you feeling yourself?
I mean, I would absolutely say that it's a mixture of all of them. I mean, I think, I can imagine that, if you've gone through a CS in college, right? Computer science in college, and you've really tried to excel at this thing. And I mean, over the I mean, even pre-COVID, right? It was almost like a given in which you would go do CS at college, you'll come out and you'd be on six figures, right? And there was real bloat happening in Silicon Valley. I would say, in the 2010s, just in terms of like the amount of jobs available, and so it's like now that all of this is sort of wearing off, the workflow is changing, and I do think it's like, okay, maybe it's a crisis of purpose, right? If those that have sort of tied their identities to writing code for quite a while, I think the uncertainty is there as well, right? Because it's kind of like we have this incredible whiplash of like fall, maybe we're sort of fall 2025. It was like that S curve in progress, or what felt like it was sort of flattening out, right? And so, and then you have the step change of Claude Code. And so I think it's a mixture of all of those things, right? It's like, okay, well, if my job and how I do my job, right, as a software engineer has changed so significantly in 1 year, and I'm able to essentially offload a lot of my written work to Claude Code, or maybe multiple instances of Claude Code, which a lot of people are building with now. What does that look like for me in a year from now, right? What does that look like for everybody else? In terms of my own anxiety, I mean, obviously, I don't write code a whole lot anymore. I've not done so since since starting the media venture. But I think for me, I just try my best not to index off of software engineering, because I think it's a unique, tech is unique in that it's probably one of the only industries in which you can take your MacBook to a cafe and you can go ahead and spin something up, right? You can vibe code it now, right? You can get Claude Code to actually spin it up for you. You can attach a Stripe link to it and you can start making money straight away.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of these, even other areas of knowledge work, I would go ahead and say, they're bound by regulation. I don't think accounting is going away anytime soon. I don't think the lawyers are going away anytime soon. Not until you can hold an AI liable in court. So I
Right.
always try and think about, okay, well, yes, the pace of engineering, right? The pace of spinning up apps, right? These workflows have changed completely. I don't think that's the case for these other industries. And so I'm always trying to think about, okay, maybe it's time for me to step out of San Francisco for a bit if I'm
Yeah.
feeling angsty myself.
So we were just talking about the Matt Schumer article, which I'm sure you
Yes.
saw. Yeah. Um, and he talks about why the industry started with code. And it was a
Yep.
logical starting place for a lot of reasons. But the reason that they've made so much progress on it is just because they've been laser focused there. And as soon as they start to focus on another area, whether it's creative writing or law or accounting,
Yep.
then we'll make massive progress there, regardless
Hmm.
of regulation, right? And so I
Yep.
I guess the question here is, of all of the platitudes that are being thrown around right now, what do you find yourself disagreeing with the most? Is it the white collar bloodbath? Is it the hyper deflationary ability of AI? Is it,
Hmm.
what do you find yourself kind of smirking to yourself? I mean, like, that's not going to actually happen.
For sure, yeah, I do feel like the discourse around the white collar bloodbath is one, it's a little bit off-putting. I mean, I know Dario. He's made these statements over the last couple of years, really. So I mean, like I think consistency's fine. I don't really understand like how productive it is. I mean, I don't want to like sort of attribute any sort of ulterior motive or whatever. I mean, I generally I do believe that these researchers and these AI leaders, I do tend to believe that they're doing their life's work and are totally well-meaning. It does seem to me that I think until this technology can essentially one shot, and I guess what I mean by one shot is like get these tasks right 100% of the time, right? Because I do think that once you step outside of like writing front end applications, right? Like I think the accuracy is super important, and I think when it comes to something like accounting, when it comes to something like legal, like accuracy is insanely important. And I seriously do think that, and until you can hold an AI liable in court, like a human has to be in the loop. And so, I do like the idea of like augmentation rather than automation. I mean, I do feel like all of these workflows, all of these white collar jobs will be augmented from, for years to come. I mean, it's hard for me to agree with the idea that, we're going to lose a lot of these jobs in the next, say, year. Right. I mean, I know Dario last year, he said sort of in 1 to 5 years, if I recall correctly, he's at Davos. I mean, he's sort of shortened that timeline a little bit. Yeah, to me, it just seems that, and until that accuracy is there, I mean, I feel like a human is just going to have to be in the loop always. Right?
Yeah, Jayden, I tend to agree with you. And Balaji put out a post maybe a month or two ago where he talked about how AI agents right now, they can really do middle to middle really well. And that middle is expanding, but there are still humans on both ends, on the front side prompting, on the back side verifying. And that prompting and verifying is going to be there at least for the foreseeable future. And I tend to agree with that. That's at least what I'm experiencing and again, like what we're doing at our company. We are on the frontier of automating things, and I'm busier than always or than ever. And we're still doing the prompting, we're still doing the verifying, and there still needs to be a human. And as you said, there needs to be somebody to blame. Maybe the laws need to change a bit. I don't think frontier labs are going to say, okay, yeah, blame us if our agent does something wrong. I think ultimately it's going to be the company providing the service. But I don't know. What do you think? Laws need to change?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, and of course, the frontier labs. I mean, they're always talking with these Congress members, right? I mean, and I would even go as far as saying that someone like Dario and Anthropic have been pushing for regulation, more so than the other labs. And I say this, they've been doing it publicly more so than the other labs have been doing, for the last few years. And so, it's sort of hard for me to say. I mean, I think it's going to be something that probably happens behind closed doors, right? The regulation side, and a lot of the discourse that happens online, I tend to get a little annoyed at, because it's never very specific. It's either like like we need to like pause AI. It's always like, we just need to either shut it all down, or like nothing needs to be done and we need to accelerate at all costs. Of course, me being the professional podcaster, I tend to be on the accelerate at all costs, which is it's like yeah, cool, like we must accelerate. Whereas a lot of the researchers be like, no, let's calm our jets here. Like we need to focus on some alignment problems. And so actual policy prescriptions. It's difficult. I mean, I think the only thing that I could probably say is that, I think the messaging from these labs really, really matters, right? I do think that, I do seem to think that like lines like 20% unemployment in 1 to 5 years coming from the top, to me that seems kind of counterproductive, because I'm always like my brother in Christ, like you're making the sandwich, right? You're building the thing. It's like, I get if you're trying to get it regulated, but I tend to be behind like just better messaging, right? Because otherwise we're probably going to get some regulation that comes down the pipe, maybe as early as the midterms, that is just much more blunt than we want, right? I mean, we already have sort of both sides of the political aisle using sort of data centers as that as like the nails to hit, right? It's like
Yeah.
whether it be an electricity thing,
Yeah.
a water thing. So yeah, that's what I'm probably most concerned about. And that's probably where the regulation will come first. Is my guess, totally uneducated guess.
No, I think it's spot on. Matt and I talk about the messaging problem quite a lot. And if you
Yeah.
look at public sentiment, I think there was an article that was released after the Super Bowl, and
Hmm.
25 to 30% of the ads in the Super Bowl were AI related. And as a result, it seemed like public sentiment around AI hit an all-time low. And so
Right.
clearly we're communicating this incorrectly.
I mean, you saw,
Uh,
right? Anthropic just said they were committing to paying for the delta in electricity prices anywhere that they put a
Yep.
data center. So I think,
yeah,
I, I would like to think that's going to have a positive impact on sentiment. I think that is the
Yes.
right move, regardless of sentiment and
absolutely.
reception. But
Hmm.
I don't actually know. I don't actually know if that's gonna. It's like, all right, if you're receiving this from the outside and you're like, okay, thanks, but how am I going to keep my job a year from now because of
That's
the
right.
stuff you're doing? I still think there's like a lot of fear and uncertainty out there that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look
No,
at the
totally,
difference
totally.
between if you look at the difference between the sentiment in China and the sentiment in the US, it's quite stark.
Yeah.
In China, it seems like they really focus on the utilitarian aspect of AI as opposed to this godlike intelligence that will take over everything. And that seems to have had a very positive effect into how it's received.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jayden, let's bring it back to San Francisco. Let's bring it back to local. Are you, would you recommend people who are looking to build, you said it is the center of the world, people who are looking to build incredible things. Do you still tell people like, yeah, you should be moving here? Do you still, is the energy still strong as ever? Like give us a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. I mean, I think, as much as I talk about like the angst, I mean, the angst is sort of like a secular thing, right? It's a secular thing whenever there feels to be a step change in AI progress, right? Because we're all engineers here in some way, shape, or form. We tend to feel that the most. But with that being said, right, obviously the opportunity feels really really great. I mean, and quite frankly, it feels. I mean, I've been in the Bay Area for almost 9 years now, and sort of there's a period in which I was on and off just post COVID, but even pre COVID when I was here, it all felt pretty like almost like a box, right? It's like okay, what was the most exciting thing happening in sort of like 2017, 2018? I mean, it was probably the cloud, right? And you had sort of like the similar sort of things of like, well, you could if you go ahead and do this like cloud boot camp or something, you can go ahead and make 300K a year at Google working on the cloud. And it's like it all just felt, I don't know, I mean, like the cloud's like cool, but I mean, what does the average person think about the cloud? It's like, cool, I get more storage, I can like upload more files. Whereas like this thing, now like all of obviously much more venture capital floating in the ecosystem as well, much more projects being funded, right? And I think the unique thing about this particular time, right, and San Francisco in particular, is that the big labs, right, the big AI labs have made the conscious decision to headquarter in the city, right? This is sort of like unlike any other period really in which you probably had a lot of the you had a lot of the FANG companies, right? Of course, they're all still in the peninsula, and like obviously like talking about the cloud, Salesforce decided to set up in San Francisco, but it was distributed still across Silicon Valley, whereas the AI boom, right? The big labs, they're all centered here in the city, right? Not so much in the peninsula. And so I think it makes it super exciting, right? I mean, there are still people wanting to move to San Francisco, right? The obviously all of the venture ecosystem is still here. And so as long as talented founders are being funded, there's going to be there's plenty of jobs here, right? And so yeah, I mean, I think it's just really exciting, right? Like people,
Yeah.
as much as there's angst, right? There's also a lot of optimism because it's like cool. It almost feels like another gold rush.
There
What's
is
the
a very special energy here. Nick, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious what the craziest thing you've seen recently. Is it humanoid, robot, cage fights?
Oh
What's
my
the
God, how are
what's
we
the
not talking
standout?
about that? Wait a
Yeah.
second. Wait a second, Jayden. Please give us yeah, you know what I'm asking. Go ahead.
Of course, of course. Yeah, so I got to pilot one of these with one of these humanoid robots. So I was the robot fighter on the weekend. So that was Rec, the company Rec. So they do the robot fighting league. And so founder of that six. Yeah, he reached out to me a couple of weeks beforehand, being like, oh, you want to you want to be a robot fighter. I was like, oh well, I mean, my honestly, my schedule's just insane. I'm not sure if I really have the time to dedicate. And he kind of pushed me on it a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I've not been to one of these things. What better opportunity to then to just like be the fighter, right? First time going and I'm the fighter. So, and so yeah, spent like 5 minutes learning how to operate the thing in the rec office, and yeah, I remember getting to the venue. Like obviously everything's spectacular. They had UFC fighters piloting them in the first round, and then I got to beat up a 13-year-old. And there was a 13-year-old on the other side, and he ended up beating me, right? Which was a little bit of a bruise to the ego, but yeah, I guess he was a gamer, but yeah, super super fun. I mean, yeah, like I think we went all 5 rounds, right? It was 2-2, and I nearly had the 13-year-old. But yeah, that was my first experience with robot fighting. It seems to be a few of these leagues popping up, and yeah, like the fact that we're only in that was Rec 1 or something, right? It was either the first or second. I think it was actually the first that they did alone. So the fact that that was the first, I mean, I look forward to seeing what comes of it. But yeah, that's a thing. Robot
I
fighting
think
leagues.
that was the peak San Francisco thing, and perfect to see you there. I moved up here a few months ago, and
Yeah.
one of the major like reasons I moved up here was I saw the underground robot fighting league rave. And I
Yeah.
was like, God, what am I doing? I have to get that. And it's such like
Yeah.
a silly thing when you say these words in sequence, and but you see it and you see the energy, and you see how just on the absolute frontier we are with testing and experimentation. It's just so exciting. So I was very happy to see you. And I caught it live, by the way. I was like, oh, I know
Oh
him.
yeah.
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 What Matt
I
is
don't think
really
people were
asking
expecting
is,
me.
how do I get an invite to become a fighter?
Yeah,
Oh, I
absolutely.
can just give you the intro to six. I mean, I think if you're totally down. I mean, I think yeah, the more of these sort of like niche internet micro celebrities we can get up there, piloting these humanoids and beating up 13-year-old
Yeah,
kids on the other
exactly.
side. It's
Jaden,
like,
I want to
yeah.
thank you so much for joining. This has been a pleasure. I would love to have you back on the show. Go check them out on X, creatine_cycle. Go check out the MOTS podcast, MOTS, members of technical staff. And Jaden, thank you. Come back again, please.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Great way to spend my morning here.
Yeah, feel better. See
Thanks,
ya.
Jayden.
Cheers. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I would absolutely love to operate one of those robots. It's only going to get better too. I mean, they're a little bit like, rigid in their movement, and it's like it feels almost there. It's still a blast to watch. So it's REK, but
Hmm.
boy, it's coming quickly. Very fun.
And it's boxing, right? It's not MMA.
It's boxing for now. Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
now.
just like imagine two people piloting, wearing VR headsets, remotes, and they're, punching, and it's being reflected with the humanoid robot. And the humanoid robots are in the ring with a human ref, which seems very dangerous, but
Yeah.
it's still absolutely hilarious and fun to watch.
I have a feeling this might be your year. Just gut
Thanks,
feeling.
man.
I think you're going to be in a ring.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
All right.
think let's bring on our next guest.
Let's do it. So, just a quick introduction here. The first million in ARR took Warp almost a year, and now they're adding 1 million every 5 to 6 days. And their users are launching nearly 3 million agents daily.
Jesus. All right. No big deal. Yeah, it was so impressive. He froze.
Yep.
So Nick, you there? I'll bring you on, Zach. So we have Zach Lloyd, founder and CEO of Warp.
Excited
Perfect
to be
time
here.
to have a glitch.
He is
Thank
so
you.
excited. Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank
Zach,
you guys
thank
for
you
having
for
me on.
joining the show. Excited to talk to you. So you guys launched something this week. Give us what is it? Tell us about it, Oz, and what makes it different.
Yep. So this week we launched Oz. Oz is a cloud agent orchestration platform. The basic problem that it's trying to solve, something you guys talk about all the time. Everyone's running tons of agents right now. They're running them on their laptops. Uh, they're outgrowing the laptop basically. So, literally people who are running multiple agents on their laptops are pegging their CPU, they're running out of RAM, memory, file space. So the core thing is like, how do you move these agents to the cloud? And then how do you move them to the cloud in a way that has the right primitives so that you can kind of manage a team of agents to do automations, to do software development at scale, to build apps on top of agents. So Oz is a sort of simple batteries included platform. You can kind of think of like Vercel for agents, where we make it really easy to set up that type of infrastructure, whether you're like an individual or you're a company that's trying to go all in on agentic development right now.
Yeah, and Zach, you talked about like solving some of the technical limitations of running a team of agents, but
Yeah,
something we were talking about earlier is actually like the human limitation and like attention saturation. I have so many agents going at the same time. It's hard to know and remember where one ended, where another began, what each one is working on. Like
I know.
how are you thinking about that?
I know. I mean, I have agents running right now as we're doing this. So the big thing is that we're trying to build like visibility and like team tracking features into what agents are doing. We're also trying to make it so that you can turn any skill into an agent. I think skills are a really great like primitive for running agents. So when you use Oz, it's like you're no longer in like the I'm an individual running four of these things on my laptop. You're like you can go into the Oz web app and you can see all the agents that are running across your entire team. You can search across them. You can like filter by the PRs that they're creating. You get a record of all the conversations that they've done. So I think this is going to be a thing that especially companies need. It's like it's not going to scale to have all your individual developers like running, for Claude Codes or Warps or whatever all the time. You want some centralized, organized data store where you can go and search and understand what all of your agents are doing.
Mm.
Before I got rudely interrupted by my poor internet, I was talking about your incredible growth. Can you walk us through this growth story? Was it
Sure.
really 300 days to your first million, and
It
now you're
was.
adding a million every couple days?
Yeah, I mean, the history of Warp is we started off building a better terminal, which, little did we know at the time we started the company that the terminal would end up becoming, I think, the most important interface in development right
It's
now.
crazy.
It's a
It is
pretty
crazy.
it's a very like fortuitous turn of events, but we knew it was like a valuable piece of real estate. It's where, at the time it's one of the two tools developers live in. It's that and the code editor. And then, as the world has changed and agents have become more and more a thing, I think it's now like it's really the primary tool, which is a crazy development. And sort of the IDE is not the right interface. It's kind of understood. Like you don't need an interface where you're sort of staring at code files all day. You need an interface where you can tell agents what to do and they have the right tools to do it. And so the terminal has become more important. That's one thing that's really helped our growth. And then Warp itself has really invested in making the terminal that is the best place to run agents. You can run our agent in there, which is what's fueling a lot of our growth. But a lot of people will run Claude Code or Codex, and we're trying to make something that is great for orchestrating any kind of agent, whether you're doing it locally within Warp or you're using Oz to do it in the cloud. So I think that's the future. The terminal is the natural like control plane for doing all these agent tasks, and so that's helped us, kind of grow very quickly, which has been a lot of fun. It's also it's like there's a lot of shit to do to make sure things work right, and we're like frantically working to go as fast as we can
Yeah.
to scale.
Yeah, Matt and I were just talking about how we've never felt busier. Are you
Yeah.
also feeling that based on the fact that you're running
It's
the
this
agents right
paradoxical
now?
thing.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like I can do way more than I could ever do before because I'm able to sort of multi-thread my work with
Yeah.
agents. But I have this same thing that you're mentioning where it's like I forget what I had agents do for me before. I feel like um it's like it's putting a lot of burden on me to multitask and track things. And there is like a little bit of a feeling of like, am I actually getting more done, or do I just like am I just like producing more tokens or whatever? It's a little bit of a stressful situation.
Yeah.
It,
So I have been gravitating towards IDEs lately, and maybe like give me the pitch. Like, why should I go to the terminal? What is like you said, there's not really a need to look at the code, which I agree with. I'm not actually looking at the code in the IDE, but it is nice to be able, if there's a MD file that just pops up and I can read
Uh,
it quickly. And
yeah.
like, what is the pitch for kind of the terminal being the primary interface?
Yeah, so the pitch for the terminal being the primary interface is just like what you want to do. Like if you're a developer today and you're working with agents, it's like you're telling the computer to do something, right? And in the past, you would tell the computer to do that thing using terminal commands. You would, run programs or run grep or whatever, Git. And today, you just tell the computer in English basically what you want it to do. You prompt it. But the form factor of like, okay, you're going to tell the computer what to do. Then you want to see like a record of it doing it. You might want to like split panes and have multiple of them doing it at a time. The terminal is like is that interface for doing that much more to me than like like a word processor interface, which is what the IDE is. That said, at Warp, and this is where Warp is like different from other terminals, like we have a markdown viewer because I think it's super duper important. If you're working with files and agents, you should be able to see the markdown. We have like a file tree. We have a native diff viewer. So I think that the truth is like somewhere in the middle. And this is we talk about Warp sometimes not as a terminal, but like as an agentic development environment. You want some of the features of the IDE, but I think the basic form factor of like multiple panes and sessions of agents running is more right than the IDE
How,
interface.
how far can you take the terminal as an interface? Because like you're starting to describe this almost like feature creep of a terminal. And like, can you take it to the point where it just looks like a traditional desktop application? Or like, is there a point like where do you draw that line?
That's like, I mean, that's basically so the way I think about it, my product philosophy here is I actually don't really give a shit about the terminal versus IDE like category distinction. I think what needs to exist is like the right tool for this brand new agent workflow. And so Warp has taken a lot of shit from this from like purists around the terminal. Like I'm very comfortable adding features that I think are going to be useful for agentic development that are not in a traditional terminal. And so our thing ends up looking, it's like a terminal first approach because it really is a very good terminal, but it's kind of moving more towards the IDE. And then conversely, I think if you look at things that have started in the IDE, maybe like Cursor or whatever, it's like they're changing their interface to look more like the terminal. And so I think the truth is somewhere in the middle here. And I'm not a religious person about these categories. I'm more of the mindset of just like build the thing that fits the workflow the best.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So people are talking a lot about how coding is going to be solved this year, and maybe the trend that kind of parallels that is all of these tools becoming more and more accessible to the average person who might not have any technical skills. So I guess one, do you think we are at a point where we're nearing the point of coding being solved, as they say? And then is that where, the folks who might not have a technical experience suddenly have access to all this stuff and kind of start building with all this stuff? Are those two things related?
Yes, that's a great question, whether coding will be solved. I think it depends on the type of thing that you're building. So let's take Warp, for example. Warp, the product itself, it's like a million lines of Rust code. It is, we do most of the building with agents, but it's they need a lot of supervision and it's hard to get it right. And I talk to like, engineering leaders at different companies that have like gigantic code bases. And basically anyone who's building kind of hard, complicated software, like the software that's on the home screen of your phone or in your Mac dock or pin Chrome tab, coding is not close to being solved. I don't really think. I think coding is much more close to being solved for individual like personal productivity for what you might think of as like vibe coding use cases. I think but it's not like we're hiring more engineers at Warp and this is the state of the world. And so I don't think we're quite there yet. That said, I do think that there's this capability that already exists. Honestly, if you look at, whatever OpenClaw or vibe coding platforms where you might not be a technically experienced person and now you can just build shit, and that is an awesome capability. And I think that that does point towards what are the friendlier, more accessible interfaces for doing this. I don't think like the stock terminal or like pulling up VS Code is necessarily the right thing. I think like shaping the interface a little bit more to be a little bit more accessible is pretty smart.
Zach, I want
Yeah.
to pull the string on something that you said. You
Yeah.
said you're hiring more engineers. And so
Yes.
I think a lot of people are a little bit fearful, starting with engineers, that their jobs are being automated away. And then also in the kind of the broader economy, they're looking at that and how much automation can actually be done and thinking, is my job going to be automated away? So talk a little bit about that first. Why are you hiring more engineers if everybody's getting so much more done? And then is that the kind of the signal that the rest of the economy should be looking at as to how things might go for them?
Yeah, so why are we hiring more engineers? So I guess just like starting specifically with Warp. So we are, I mean, first of all, we're in a crazy competitive space, right? So we are competing with like the pace of innovation and people putting out new product in our space is like every week it's something new. And so that's just one thing. I don't know if that's true in every single industry, but that's a need for us. The second thing is like the idea that we could somehow replace like very smart engineers on our team with a fully agent-based sort of like software engineering workforce is just wrong. Just like our software is too hard. Like, and believe me, I'm trying to do this. Like, I'm trying to build a feature into Warp, just like right now, where it's like it's markdown rendering, and that sounds very easy, but it's like we have our own custom UI framework, and like the agents kind of get it, but they kind of are doing it in a way that's not right. It produces a lot of bugs. And so I think the closer you get to these harder, bigger apps, what you need right now as a company is like smart engineers who are fully in on adopting the tools. And that's like the biggest way that you accelerate, as opposed to being like, I'm cutting engineers and I'm just like letting the agents go wild. I don't think that that's like a realistic thing for a company like Warp or for probably for most of the bigger software companies in the world.
Is that the parallel that people outside of engineering should be drawing? Are they going to be looking at it like, okay, the hardest problems are still something that require a human in the loop, and that just means we need to adapt more quickly. We were talking about this earlier on the show, but I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Like, it's a little bit of a cliche right now. It's like the you're not going to be replaced by an agent right now, I don't think, but you may be replaced by a person who is fully embraced using these agents. Like I see that with the engineers who succeed and fail at Warp even. It's like the ones who succeed are really embracing the technology, but in a way where they're using their critical thinking, they're using their engineering skills to actually make the thing a force multiplier. And actually, the people who aren't succeeding, this is an interesting trend. It's like they tend to they'll join Warp and they'll go all in on the agent, but not in a way where they're thinking hard about what the agent's doing. And you'll sort of like they won't learn the fundamentals of like the way the code base works, the architecture, what the product needs are. They'll just throw agents at the thing. And so there's a real skill thing that I think people should be embracing around how you use and organize all of these like tools. Like I've seen how you're doing like your OpenClaw setup, and it's crazy. And it's like it's clearly a lot of thought has gone into it. And
Yeah.
so thinking hard about how to use them is a really key aspect of embracing the technology.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think I am right now trying to figure out how to set up agents to think about the holistic architecture of my OpenClaw setup. Like I don't
Yeah,
want to have to think about the big picture as much as I do. So I'm trying to figure
right.
out, but you're right, it's not quite there yet there. I want to switch topics for a second. Let's talk about the
Sure.
models. First of all,
Yes.
what's your primary model for coding? And then let's do the comparison. I think there's really two major models that are being on the frontier that coders are using, and then let's talk about open source a little bit. But first, which model are you using?
So as of like this last week, and this is changing quickly, my preferred coding model is Codex 5.3. Before that, it was Opus 4.6. Those
Why?
I would assume
Why?
those are the ones you're talking
Yeah,
about, but
of
like,
Yeah.
course. And I
yeah.
just I'm using Opus 4.6, especially the
Yeah.
fast, but like tell me why. Sell me on Codex 5.3 because it seems like all the best engineers I know are switching to that right now.
It just does a little bit better of a job reasoning through very complex, hard problems. So if I am doing something where I'm like, I need the maximal amount of intelligence and explanation as to why it's going to do something, I will use that. It takes longer. That's like the downside. It's slower. Um, but I have found that with Opus 4.6, I have more problems with context loss, a little bit more problems with it, like suggesting solutions that aren't really fully thought through. These are both incredible, incredible frontier models, just to be clear. But my personal preference right now, when I'm doing something very hard, like my default model in Warp is Codex 5.3 right now.
It's good to meet another quality accuracy maxi. Matt's a
Yeah.
big speed maxi.
I am a
Oh
speed
yeah.
Uh,
maxi, it's
yeah.
true.
Um, how I yeah, I'm curious. Like to me, like the quality is the thing, and especially as these in a world where it's like I'm doing more like step away from the computer to come back to something, I don't care as much about the latency. Whereas if I'm sitting there iterating with it, I do find the latency of the codex models annoying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah, much of what I do is I'm just sitting there iterating with it. I also
Yeah.
don't think I'm solving the level of complexity of problems that you guys are. So it's like
Okay.
I'm working on an OpenClaw instance and Opus is more than
Right.
enough. It understands my code base well, has a million tokens that I can play with. And most importantly to me, it's super fast. It's very, very capable. But I switch back and forth, and I can't necessarily tell the difference besides the speed.
That make I think again, I think it's a really interesting point in terms of like coding being like solved, where it might be that for the I mean, I think this is definitely how it's going to be. It's for the simpler, more straightforward problems. Um, I don't even think you're going to need to use an Opus, like a frontier Opus model very soon. You're going to be wanting to use like an open source model that is much cheaper and also faster. And like I think you're going to only need the frontier models. Like we need the frontier models because we're doing things that where the AI is still failing and it's failing to get the right answers. But I think for the simpler stuff, that's not going to be the case very soon.
Do you have for you or your company like a tiering system for models that you use? If you know a certain task can be done with a non-frontier model, are you plugging in open local models? Like, what does that look like for you?
We are not doing that. Like I think that is the correct solution. So like Warp itself is multi-model and is model routed. So we will try to actually do this automatically for users where we will do a pass on the complexity of the task and then pick what we think the appropriate model is. We're not asking engineers to like to rotate. We're trying to bake that into the product. And I think that that's probably a good approach.
And then I know you said your preferred model is 5.3 codex. Is that
Yeah.
what you're seeing for the rest of the team, or is there some disagreement there?
It's a mix. I think a lot of people like Opus 4.6 also. Those are the two.
Yeah. And then I wanted to, last thing, ask you about software in general.
Yeah.
As agents are able to accomplish more and more, it just seems like if you're a vertical SaaS company, you're kind of in a tough place right now. We've seen that reflected in the public markets over the last couple of weeks. What's your take on the future of SaaS and software in general? I know that's a very broad question, so come at it with through any angle that you want.
Yeah, I'll tell you my take on the SaaS like slump and all of that is that I think that there's some truth to it. So I think increasingly when you look at like the build versus buy equation, which is what traditionally like someone buying software for companies looked at, I think it's going to tilt more and more towards build because the cost of the build is so much lower and like the potential to build something that's just right for your workflow is higher. I do think like code is going to become less of a moat. This is just true. Like the cost of producing code is going way, way down. That said, I think code has never been the entire thing. Like, you know, pick a company here. It's like it's been very easy to replicate like the Salesforce software stack for a long time, but Salesforce persists and grows because they have these other moats around distribution and data and brand and the way that they do marketing. And so I don't think that software has always been just like the only like the only thing that matters to these companies. But yeah, in the long term, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be starting like a vertical SaaS business right now. Like that seems like a crazy move. I want to be in the business of helping people build the software that they want, which is the business that we're in.
Yeah. Even just over
Do
the
you,
last few weeks, the amount of software that I've built for myself that previously I would have purchased off the shelf
It's
has been
crazy, right?
tremendous.
it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's tremendous. Nick, please go
Yeah.
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, no, you mentioned code is probably not the moat any
Yeah.
longer. Like, we talk about this a fair amount on the show, but what is your feeling about the new moat? You know, is it the underlying data? Is it speed of execution? What do you think?
I really don't know. Like it's a super interesting question. Like you see like Anthropic and OpenAI growing based on the just there at the frontier of the model, and it's like, is that a moat? I don't know. Like I
Right.
feel like those feel very fragile to me too, based on like the open source. I think it's like if you go back and look at I don't know if you know like the Seven Powers book for businesses, I think those moats sort of still apply where it's distribution, it's brand, it's data, it's a real network effect in the application that you're using. Those things have not been solved by agents. And so, yeah, I think you want to try to, if you're building a company right now, you want to try to get to scale and you want to try to get, some sort of thing beyond just like the quality of the product that keeps people coming back to your thing, which is
Yeah,
hard.
that's well said. Yeah, and it seems like you're well on your way to scale. What would you attribute
Yeah.
the growth to that you're seeing?
Yeah, so I think the growth for us has been the quality of the product, which is
Yeah.
like I'm like, how
Oh,
do
imagine
you
that.
how do you make this a lasting thing? I think, this is part of the reason why we're investing more in Oz and just the cloud strategy and making agents work for teams is that if you have like a pure desktop cloud agent solution, like there's a lot of these like other like TUI, like TUI apps that are just like they do this exact same interface as Claude Code and they're just run locally. I don't know how that's like a lasting thing. And so we're trying to get to basically a business level solution and really be an enterprise, something that enterprises want, and becomes entrenched in the way that they build software. But yeah, it's a scary thing. And like I guess we're a little bit safer because I do think our product is not trivially replicable by an
Hmm.
agent right now, but I don't know how long that will last. And so like we're in a race against the clock of building up these other like scale properties and usage and brand and all of that stuff.
All right.
Well,
Well, we're rooting for you.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Zach, thank you so much for joining. You can find Zach on X at Zach Lloyd Tweets. Also, go check out Oz. Check it out, warp.dev. Fantastic product. Keep up the great work. And we would love to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, take it easy.
Have a good day. All right. Nice. So, um, so I think I'm going to go back and try GPT-5.3 Codex again. And I'm also going to give Terminal a try again as my primary interface. So we'll see how
Yeah.
that works out. By the way, if you're watching right now, please give us a like, subscribe wherever you're watching it. We would very much appreciate it. We're really putting a ton of time, a ton of effort, a ton of preparation into these shows, booking phenomenal guests. So we would really appreciate if you showed us some love, showed us some support.
Awesome. All right, Matt, last guest of the day. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Our next guest helped create the world's first AI piloted fighter jet, which is pretty awesome. This aircraft doesn't need a runway to take off, and it performs in environments like Ukraine, where electronic warfare and GPS jamming have become standard. This combination has serious implications for how wars are fought and won. And here to tell us more about that is Armor Harris, SVP of Shield AI. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, everybody. Glad to be here.
Hello.
Yeah.
So I want to actually start a little bit with your background. Give us the lay of the land. How did you arrive at Shield AI? And what kind of drew you to the company to begin with?
Yeah, great question, Nick. I was at SpaceX for a long time. I started as an intern, left as an executive there. So it was an incredible journey
Very
working
nice.
on developing rocket engines, landing the rocket. I was fortunate to lead the Starlink satellite engineering team. And then we stood up a defense-oriented program at SpaceX called Starshield, which was a ton of really rewarding work. And then in order to pursue defense further, that's how I got connected to Shield AI. So I've been here for 2 years building the world's first autonomous vertical takeoff and landing fighter jet.
So
Farmer,
why is this technology such a breakthrough? Why is it so important in today's battlefield?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. So what we really set out to solve was the most pressing problem in the Pacific. So the mission that Shield AI stands for, and the mission that I'm very personally passionate about, is ensuring that the U.S. And China, or the U.S. and Russia, do not get into a World War III type scenario. And if we can prevent that from happening, that's going to make life a whole lot better for all of us here on Earth.
Yeah, that feels like a
So
win.
yeah, that'd be a big win.
Yeah.
The best way to do that, history has shown, is through deterrence. And the challenge that we have here in the United States is that China's out economy, particularly their defense industrial base, can outproduce the United States. So, in order for us to maintain deterrence, we need to figure out how to do that through asymmetric means.
So what that means is you have China has the edge in industrial capability. America hopefully has the edge in software innovation, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's what Team America is great at.
Yeah,
so
got it.
so tell us how XBAT factors into that. First of all, what is it? Describe it, and then how does it actually help the problem you just described?
Yeah, so XBAT is vertical takeoff and landing fighter jet. Carries about the same payload as an F-35, goes twice as far, and doesn't have a pilot in the cockpit, which means that in contested, modern, high-end battlefield, you don't have to send one of our best and brightest out there into the most dangerous environment on Earth. We can send something autonomous out there to do those really dangerous, really complicated missions without risking some of our best and brightest.
And talk a little bit about the business model, because I know like traditional defense companies are cost plus. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but then like what is different about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so the thing that I'm like pretty passionate about is that for a long time, a lot of us in our generation growing up in the United States didn't really have to think about defense as a problem set. But in the world that we live in today, it's radically changed even in the last 10 years. And I think that like 1% of the smart and talented people who work in tech in the West today need to work on defense if we want to maintain and extend the way of life that we've all enjoyed for the last 10 or 20 years. So really that's what a company like Shield AI is doing, is bringing a lot of tech mindset into aerospace and defense where you really haven't had that before.
So with the XBAT specifically, why the size? So if I understand it correctly, it's not quite the size of the F-35, but it's near the same size. Why not go smaller, where you're looking at your typical drone size, maybe the size of a desk? Is it for range specifically and payload, or are there other factors involved?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Nick. It's range and payload. So it is smaller than F-35. By weight, it's about a third the size of an F-35, but it carries the same internal payload to a much greater range because it's autonomous and because of some of the other advances that we've made. So when you're talking about the vast distances in somewhere like the Pacific, you just got to fly a really long way.
Got it. And what's the most challenging part of developing this XBAT?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are a lot of challenges when you're doing anything this revolutionary. There's bound to be a lot. I'd say one of the top ones is for sure the vertical landing, and doing it once or twice is one thing, but doing it reliably over and over again in all kinds of environments is pretty challenging. But we're fortunate to be standing on the shoulders of a lot of things that people here worked on with reusable Falcon 9, for example, or for smaller aircraft, VBAT, which has done this tens of thousands of times all over the world.
And Armor, I want to continue on it feels like we're in this hard tech, hardware renaissance. A lot of amazing companies coming out. We have humanoid robots being built. What is the energy like in the industry right now? Where, as we were just talking about with the previous guest, maybe software is on the cusp of being solved. Well, that really does move us to one place, which is hardware. What is the energy like, and like how exciting is it? Are you seeing an influx of people who want to build hard stuff, hardware?
Yeah, Matt, that's a great call out. In the world that we live in today, the brains are becoming cheaper and cheaper to develop, thanks to advances in AI. But the bodies are just as hard as ever. And given that we're trying to go higher, faster, further all the time, the bodies, as we call them, the hardware just gets harder and harder. So, in particular, here in the United States, for 2 decades, a lot of our best and brightest have gone into software, right out of school, and not as many folks have gone into hardware. So it's actually like really hard to find great hardware engineers in America these days.
Does that feel like it's changing right now? Is it a lot of people are seeing, what the SpaceX team is doing and all these humanoid robot companies with these incredible innovations, and it seems like it's accelerating. Are you just seeing more and more people interested in exploring that kind of range of research?
Yeah, the interest is definitely high, really in the last 5 years, but there's kind of a lag function. Like you're in college for 4 years and then it takes you another, 4 to 6 years to, really get proficient at something coming out of school. You're kind of looking at like a decade type lag from the demand signal, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah. You're also seeing a transition where capital is allocated. We just had Joe Floyd from Emergence Capital on the show last week, and historically they've been investing in software companies. That's their bread and butter. And now in the last 6 months, they've invested in several hardware companies. So the transition does seem to be happening in a real way across multiple fronts. I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit about battlefield strategy, like how. I can imagine it has changed significantly in the last 10 years, last 5 years, even last couple of years. Like, what are you all seeing in the way that warfare is really changing? And how do you as a company try to get in front of that and predict where it's going so that you can aim your resources in that direction? It must be very difficult and complicated, I assume.
Yeah, Nick, that's a great question. So the fundamentals that have held true throughout human history continue to hold true today. Namely, information and logistics are fundamentally what wins conflicts. The change that we are seeing now is that the tip of the spear end effectors are changing. Those are becoming automated systems, drones, things like XBAT, bringing it into the high-end air domain. That's where we're really seeing the change. But those fundamental logistics at the end of the day are still what really matters. And that's something that the United States is uniquely good at versus really any other country in the world.
So what does that mean in practice? Can you walk us through an example of the logistics as it pertains to a war like Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, if we just look at what's going on in Ukraine, it's really a pretty unfortunate situation because you have this really stagnant front line that just turns into attrition, and it's just a terrible environment for everyone there, who's on the ground. And we have some of the bravest people in the world today who are really living through what the hell of that reality looks like. But the reason why we're stuck in a situation like that is because neither side has been able to really generate an advantage when it comes to constraining the other side's supply lines and then simultaneously holding their own open. And the reason for that is that the most heavily defended airspace in the world is in Ukraine. So both on both the Russian side and the Ukrainian side, the front line, you have incredibly dense forest of air to surface to air weapons. So when you can't fly through that forest of surface to air weapons, and you fundamentally need air power to get beyond the front lines and actually hold those supply lines at risk, then you get this fundamentally like stagnant situation. And that's really what the problem that XBAT solves is the ability to survive in the electronic warfare environment, be able to fly through those integrated air defense bubbles, get behind the front lines, and then hold those deep strategic targets at risk. And that's actually, how you prevent the United States or our allies from ending up in a situation like what we're seeing play out in Ukraine.
And then let's continue the discussion about autonomy on the battlefield. Where should the decision making live? Are there decision making models within the XBAT? Or is there more of a central hub where those decisions are being made? Should there be a human in the loop at all times?
Yeah, Matt, this is a really good question and a really complicated question. So fundamentally, we believe that a human should be on the loop for any offensive kinetic decision making. But there are a couple different scenarios, and maybe I'll just walk you through two to give you two examples. So we've actually had fully autonomous weapon systems on the battlefield for years. In the U.S. Navy, all of our destroyers have a system called the Aegis combat system. And that combat system takes the sensors that are on the ship and networks them to the weapon systems that are on the ship. And you can turn the key to full auto, and it will engage any threat that is inbound to the ship. And we've been running that since the 80s. So from a defensive posture, it makes a lot of sense that the reaction times that you have to engage something like an anti-ship missile, coming in to strike your ship, you don't really have time to wait. In a lot of scenarios, you actually need the speed of the computer to launch the interceptor to knock down that missile before it harms you or your crew. So from a defensive standpoint, XBAT can operate a lot like that. In an offensive posture, it really comes down to the rules of engagement, right? So if XBAT is operating out in front of, say, a carrier battle group, and it's designed to patrol, or it's designated to patrol a box of airspace, it will, based on the rules of engagement, decide what it's going to do with what enters that airspace, right? So if we know that anything in this airspace is an adversary fighter or attack aircraft, that's one thing. But if it's a confused situation and you could have civilian air traffic or you could have friendly air traffic in that same area, you need to have a different set of rules of engagement. So we spend a lot of time really dialing this in. And ultimately, that's where you want to have a human on the loop at all times because at the end of the day, war is fundamentally a human thing, and we can't dehumanize it. We can't take the humans out of it because I think the result there can be a pretty scary dystopian future.
Yeah. Well said.
Do you think there's a place, forgive the silly question, but do you think there's a place for humanoid robots on the battlefield, or does that not make sense in a warfare type situation? There's other vehicles or things that might be more efficient.
No, absolutely. I think there's a place for humanoid robots. I think as soon as they're, as soon as the tech, is able to, match what the, promise is, so to speak, I think we're going to see them being used for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
Armor, I want to thank you so much for joining today. Really appreciate you kind of highlighting what you guys are doing over there. The XBAT, just from a design visual perspective, looks pretty incredible. So yeah, keep up the great work. Really appreciate it. Go check it out at Shield AI Tech on X and shield.ai. Armor, thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. See ya. All right. Yeah.
So interesting. It's an area that we don't spend a lot of time on, but it's important.
No, we don't spend a lot of time. We're just kind of scratching the surface of, at least I'll speak for myself, my own knowledge. And I definitely want to learn more. I mean, it's happening whether we wanted to or not, and it's important for us to be knowledgeable about what's going on and hopefully share with our audience as well. So really
Yeah.
appreciate Armor coming on.
And just one other thing to add,
Please.
we spend a lot of time on the show talking about AI, obviously. It's kind of in our roots, but more and more in the audience will notice this. We want to focus on tech a little bit more holistically, talk about futurism, advancements across all sectors of tech. And so you'll be seeing more and more of these guests from other industries coming on.
Yeah, well said. And if you're watching right now and you want to see those other things, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to drop a like.
Nice.
And yeah, thank you. That's what they pay me for.
Yeah.
And that's our show for today. So shout out Jayden Clark, Atlas, host of the MOTS podcast, Zach Lloyd, founder and CEO of Warp, Armor Harris, SVP and GM of Shield AI. Nick, once again, thank you very much for co-hosting with me.
Happy to do it.
And thanks to everybody who's watching. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter at Forward Future. Check out our awesome newsletter, forwardfuture.ai, and we'll see you next time.